Awesome. So thanks for joining us today. I'm Dave Bilbrow. I head up Enterprise Architecture and Innovation for Adobe, and we're going to talk about Adobe's new Experience Platform that we released this year and some of the developer features and other things that we have as part of it. I don't know, should we give it another minute? I don't know. Doesn't look like there's a lot of people outside. Door's still open, though. Oh, no, it's not. They're closing. Thank you, Ben. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the platform approach, like what's in the platform, and then I want to tell some selected case studies. The case studies are where the fun with this is. I mean, we've built a platform that does a lot of things, and it's sort of different for Adobe. We're letting our customers actually get their hands directly onto data. We're letting our customers write code that are part of our applications now and things like that. I mean, this is really new and really different for us. So the case studies are what really tells what it does and how it works. We're going to tell some cool case studies. And then I've got some platform themes that we can go over if we have time. And then we have a prize for the Q&A session. So I want to let everybody know. We weren't able to secure the Adobe socks if you saw them at the booth, but we do have a great prize. So, we're a well-known application maker. Probably you guys know us from Photoshop and Lightroom, and if you're on the marketing end of your company, you know us from Adobe Analytics and AEM and things like that. So we had a lot of business problems that we set out to solve the last 2 or 3 years, specifically with our platform, not the least of which the conundrum of data sources. So 5 years ago, I led multi-solution delivery for Adobe, and I worked with some of our most successful customers like T-Mobile and Sprint and Comcast and Time Warner Cable, like big customers that made a big bet on the Adobe Experience Cloud back in like 2014, 2015. And part of architecting their ecosystem for driving experience was figuring out all the different types of data that we had to take in from different places in their ecosystem and then how to land it correctly in the Adobe world to be used correctly, whether it was by our DMP or whether our web targeting, web personalization types of tools, or whether it was our campaign manager. I mean, all those sorts of things had a lot of data that we were looking for. So the platform gives us a single I/O point for that sort of thing, a single place to land data where it can be leveraged for segmentation and used throughout a lot of places. The second thing is we've built a profile that's available on demand and in real time. So this is really different than how profiles work for the most part in this industry. And we're going to talk a lot about like how you can use our profile as an ODS for a lot of different types of development that some of our customers are already doing. Really neat stuff. But sort of the concept here, the most difficult thing about building any sort of customer-facing application is like, well, how am I architecting my data store? How is the customer data that underlies this going to feed the right type of data? And I've got examples about having built like chatbots and having built some serverless functions and other things that my team's worked on for this. Really difficult to get the data angle of that right. The development part's actually pretty simple for the arbitration and the conditional logic and stuff like that. So the data store, super critical. Our profile, we'll talk about it a little bit later. Like I said, on demand is really different than how CDPs work. Like if you're familiar with the CDP industry, and then real time is different than how like other profile stores, like whether you're talking about a master data management or like some other type of enterprise data warehousing thing, real time is really different. Sort of the next area that's really sort of a common theme for our platform is AI and ML innovation. So our customers have wanted better AI and ML. Well, I mean, they've always wanted better AI and ML, frankly. AI and ML is exactly as good as the data that you feed into it. There's no way to make up for bad data. And so we have fantastic AI and ML features that are localized within each product, whether it's Photoshop or whether it's Adobe Analytics or whether it's something else. Our platform, by landing all of our data in a single place and having it available on demand and in real time, we create a basis for better AI and ML that helps our customers scale out to better experiences, helps our customers to do more, helps our customers to have more capacity at their disposal for that. Our next big challenge that we had to tackle for our customers is they hate our workflows. They love telling me, how much they hate our workflows. And I get it. I mean, we had a suite of products on the enterprise side that you had to log out of one and into the other, sometimes 4 and 5 times to complete a single workflow, to create like an outbound email campaign or to create a web personalization campaign, that sort of thing. So by centralizing a lot of functions, whether it's part of the profile or whether it's other things, we at least have the capacity going forward to build workflow-oriented interfaces that our customers have wanted for a long time. Our next big thing that we have to tackle is privacy. We have data, we collect behavioral data. That's an interesting space to play in 2019 because every day there are new privacy regulations. Every day there are new things that we have to take into account for security and things like that. So we've begun the process of centralizing where all of the data lives for our applications. That gets us to a point where our customers will have fewer things to account for in terms of how, their privacy compliance goes. And then finally, the last thing is a platform to build on. Back in 2015, we at Adobe Summit 2015, we made these announcements about experience and how experience was important. And like at the time, we had to actually like tell our customers like, hey, your customer experience is important. Now our customers know that. They've all figured that out in the last 4 years. They're all trying to build great experiences. The net effect of that we didn't anticipate is our customers now want to help us build they want our tools to be part of how they build their experience. They don't want to merely operate our applications now. So like our tools that made sort of like building websites and experiences simple, our customers are now like, hey, if I'm just using your tool, then I have exactly what everybody else has. I want to build something with a grander vision. And so we've built the platform to sort of be a set of building blocks that our customers can use to build their ecosystem out and to be able to do more. And this is our sort of architecture. And I've got actually a enterprise architecture and a service level architecture to go over with you guys. I know this is a developer conference. I didn't want to dwell on the marketing slides, but sort of at a high level, just to understand, like we have one module that collects and processes event level data into a data model. Really neat, built on top of a Kafka pipe that we can apply real-time filters and real-time conditional logic into the streaming about where to land data and do some other neat stuff with it. Behind that is our profile service. Adobe was customer number 1 driving the development for this. Our CEO, Shantanu, said, I want a profile that can provide context, whether it's to my call center agents or whether it's in-app in Photoshop. So like if you guys are Photoshop users or if you're InDesign users, you can actually, oh, come on, I know you have this diagram. I'm just giving him a hard time. He works for us. If you're a Photoshop user, the Photoshop app is actually able to transform the menus and the interface based on the data in your profile. And the profile models whether you're a professional user or whether you're a hobbyist user or whether you are merely a Photoshop subscriber or whether you have the entire Creative Cloud and a number of things like that. So we're able to use that profile. It's the same profile that provides context whether you're on the phone talking about your Photoshop subscription to a call center agent, whether it's the Photoshop application actually reaching out and taking contextual data from the profile to personalize your Photoshop experience, all the way down to the Creative Cloud app that runs on your Mac or on your Windows machine to actually install all the Creative Cloud apps. Like all of those different places are personalizing your experience based on the data in our profile. It's not as simple as it sounds because it takes 4 or 5 different kinds of storage and an elaborate series of handshakes to have the data be available real-time, on-demand, deep, and wide. Deep meaning I need to be able to say, like, tell me everything that you know about Ben and bring back all the fields that I have on Ben, but also wide to be able to say, like, give me the audience of people at Microsoft Ignite and give me all the IDs and then give me some of the qualifying criteria that I use there. So it requires a number of different types of storage and a number of different types of handshake. And then we've tacked onto that services and like a service architecture that our customers like that has a identity resolution service, a segmentation service. I mean, all these services that marketers need to be able to build experiences with this. Our next layer on top of that is our AI and machine learning layer. The AI and machine learning layer, here, I'll get out of the way, is the where we have done a couple of really new and kind of novel things with the platform. The first one is we've actually opened up the data model. You can add tables, you can add fields. Like, there's no more question about, like, well, where do I land the data when I want to bring it into my Adobe ecosystem? You know, we've got XDM, it's available on GitHub. It's built on Microsoft's common data model. So it's a schema that's kind of larger than just Adobe. A lot of developers here are working on CDM. It's also, you can reach right into it with a query engine. You know, that's really new for us. If you've ever used any of our APIs to get data out of Adobe Analytics or other places, they're kind of a pain in the butt. Now you can write a simple SQL query and get data right out. You can also build a function in Python. You can build a predictive model in R. You can use TensorFlow. You can use Spark. A number of other popular open source data science tools. Can use them directly on the data. The application there being, I can run a simple SQL query to isolate a test data set. I can then build a model in R. That model in R can score something in real time based on what's happening in the profile and put that predictive score in the profile that all of my customer-facing applications can see. So we didn't necessarily reinvent the wheel by allowing customers to use R. There's far simpler and cheaper ways to do that, I think we all know. But this workflow that creates for the marketer and then the ability to process all of that in sequence that way is very powerful. The next layer on top of that is our application delivery layer. We have some neat things there. We have everything from journey orchestration to edge compute processing and a number of other things that are helpful for the last mile to actually deliver the experience to the customer. Whether we're talking about a campaign to send emails out, or whether we're talking about activating profiles into our edge network so that you can look them up at a point of sale or in a mobile app, geofence it in someplace. We'll talk about some use cases in just a couple minutes. But sort of left to right, these are the layers of the platform, and this is what it is. So when we talk about like an overall enterprise architecture, I have that's pretty neat. I didn't realize we were closed captioned. So that threw me off for a second there. What I've got here is an enterprise architecture that we use to talk to customers sometimes, just to sort of help them understand like where this fits into all of their ecosystem. So most of our customers have some sort of data lake. A lot of them are using Snowflake. A lot of them are using Cosmos DB. Sort of wherever they are, they have their system of record where they're putting data in. They have their customer data model, their storage, their compute layers, and stuff like that. Most of them have a CRM system. A lot of Dynamics users, some Salesforce users. We see ERPs and stuff like that. We see a lot of different commerce systems, including the one that we have, our Magento service. But you know, you see kind of going top to bottom, like we get behavioral data and things that are happening in real time from customers from Adobe Analytics, but typically like our customers are feeding us something out of their data lake, they're feeding us something out of their CRM, they're feeding us like different customer attributes from different places. We don't copy that data. What we're doing is we become an activation layer on top of it. Like we don't replace any of the functionality of any of that. But like I talked about earlier with the Kafka pipe, with the streaming behavioral data, and then syndicating all that into the profile, which we'll talk about in a second, it helps to have some level of customer understanding in that system to attach all that behavioral data to, so that we can then use tools like Adobe Campaign, Adobe Target, and or other marketing tools. You know, we integrate well with ExactTarget. We integrate well with Pegasystems. I mean, a lot of different things. So at a service level, just so you guys understand like what actually makes this thing up to actually have all this work. In the data foundation, we have our data governance layer. We have our infrastructure. This is all built on top of Azure using ADLS, the Azure Data Lake Services. We're processing data. We have a number of data collectors and data connectors that we've built already that go into our XDM layer. We have our governance on top of that. You know, governance is very important. We've developed a global policy enforcement for that data. Very helpful for marketing data, very uncommon to be able to enforce that simply. On top of that, we have our profile services, our insight services, and our decisioning services. And you see we have a runtime environment and event bus and things like that. These are some of the things for our customers that are developing their own applications on top of our platform. So we'll talk about a couple of examples of that when we get to some of the customer stories. Then on top of that, we have our application layer. And our application layer is what's taking the event level data in the data store that's then been processed into a customer level profile, and it's had some level of intelligence added to it. And then we're actually activating it for experience orchestration, or we're doing customer journey analysis, or we are activating, we have a feature called RT-CDP, which is similar to output for how the CDP market works. Want to make a quick point about, I mentioned before about the event level database and then the customer level profile. All of the events, and you see like experience events here, and I've got a mock-up sort of what they look like, then move into my profile level data. And it's an important distinction to understand because most of what's in the XDM or the experience data model is event level data. So we're transforming that event level data into customer level data in the profile service. This lends itself to giving our developers a flexibility in terms of how they collect data. Like our developers are telling us things like, hey guys, we don't want to have to collect things at a profile level. Like we've got events. The way that like web apps are architected now, the way that mobile apps are architected now, we want to like be able to stream event level data directly into some place that then gets transformed up for us to use once it's in aggregate. So sort of like the way all those things work, we're seeing things like customers that are using different toolkits for operational data and things like that. All that data needs to land someplace, in a linear sequence of event data, and then we need to transform it into something that they're able to actually use. And so the way that we actually use it is here in our unified profile service. So like we have our primary attributes here, like these are customer inputs. Like these are things that we either captured from a CRM, a data lake, or from like a customer input. Next up, other data that comes in. And some of these things are filled in, either from the data lake or from your CRM, wherever it comes from. Also could be a customer input. Then we have what we call our linked identities. Identity resolution is one of the most difficult things for marketing tools to do these days because of how complex and how many devices we all have. I mean, I see a lot of laptops and phones and iPads and Surface Pros and everything kind of going around here. Linked identities, the ability to arbitrate how identity is linked. I may, as a marketer, for example, I had a call right before this started with a stock brokerage, and they are one of our customers that's doing this. They're concerned about account level messaging and account level marketing because they're really focused on accounts and households. Individuals aren't really important to them. On the flip side, had a call this morning with a media company. They're only concerned about individuals. They're concerned about individuals and consumption patterns and things like that. So the ability to tell us which piece of data constitutes an identity and how they're linked together so that all of your data actually comes together is one of the really powerful aspects of the profile. Because then you see, once I create my segments and things like that, and all my behaviors, like the events coming together and everything, I've got a full view of everything from like what the customer inputs, the behavioral data, the things that came from CRM and everything else, the way that I understand their identity, and then what segments I've qualified them for. So all that event level data comes together, processed, and then displayed. And this display, very powerful for a lot of customers. We'll get into a couple of examples how in just a couple minutes. So now I want to tell a couple of customer stories. We have been in beta for almost a year and then in GA for about 6 months now. So we have about 15 or 16 customers that we've worked with and actually done some neat stuff with. And this one we actually just are in the process of launching. We architected this one about 2 weeks ago, but are you guys familiar with the Azure Event Grid? No, not so much? Okay, so Azure Event Grid, if you're a Azure user, it's a fancy event bus that goes across your Azure processes and your Azure Data Lake and things like that. All of the different processes and functions that you're running on Azure, it creates an event bus. And so this was for a casino. I can't say which one because it's still in process, but this was for a casino. And their entire system of loyalty and of check-in and all of the different like room service and like charging things to your room and everything else is all built on top of Azure. In fact, they probably have quite a few developers here. I haven't run into them yet, but I'm sure they're here for Ignite. They came to us and they said, we need for Adobe to be able to latch on to that event bus. So what we architected was a serverless function that took individual events coming through that event bus and passes it into our platform, placing it directly into our experience data model. So if I like check into their casino, which I'll be doing on Monday night actually, because I'm going to see them, when I check into their casino, it actually creates a event bus event that will then call the Adobe Experience Platform. Adobe Experience Platform, as soon as that event comes in, it passes it directly up into the profile. Once it's in the profile, we can kick off what's called a journey or journey manager. Journey management can take a bunch of steps, and it can first call back to an API and see, is my room ready? So like I've checked in. I don't know if you guys have been to Vegas recently, but you never apparently just get your key and go straight up to your room. They have to give it to you, and then or they give you a key, and then they tell you when it's active, and they tell you what room it's for later, and everything. That sort of whole process. If you get there at 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon, whatever, like check-ins apparently 6 o'clock these days for them. But anyway, what they want to do is they want to be able to message you while you're there in the lobby, and they want to be able to talk to you based on what type of customer you are, and they want to be able to, not just message you when your room is ready via text message. I mean, they had that a couple years ago. Now they want to manage your journey. Like if you're a high roller, they want to be able to alert the casino manager maybe to come greet you. They maybe want to take some other action, send you an email, whatever they want to do. They want the flexibility to do it. So the serverless function calls us, passes that into our data model. Once it's in our data model, we give them the flexibility to do whatever they want with that. Very, very kind of cool, very neat use case, and it shows where we adapted like right into their existing tech and gave them sort of a neat way to process right out of the profile as a data store. The next one, this was a neat one. If you were at Adobe Summit last year, you would have seen this on our trade show floor. We built a chatbot that we showed off, and it was a healthcare chatbot. So it took you through a whole experience. You could ask it questions, and sort of the premise that we gave each person going into it is that imagine you have an ear infection. Probably we've all had one at one point in our lives. It's kind of a pain and just annoys everything. And the experience of getting healthcare can be difficult. I mean, there's a lot of friction in that experience. You don't know where to go. We built a chatbot that takes all that out. It's ostensibly would be powered by your insurance company, so it would be able to find you care and do a number of other things. The arbitration and everything was simple to build. We used the Microsoft chatbot framework for that. So if you're familiar with Azure Intelligence Services, they have a chatbot framework, very powerful. The chatbot framework doesn't have a data store though. And so for that, we used our profile. So it calls right into the profile, and it knows everything that we tell the profile about you, the customer. So we had some personas that you would go into it, and you would be one of several personas, and it knew where you work, it knows where you live, it knows where you go. It has all these different things that your insurance company would know about you. And then it has a conversation with you about getting you care for your ear infection based on what your specific profile says. Super cool, was a lot of fun. We've had a number of our early customers. Chatbots are one of the first things that they're going to do with the platform. So really excited about that one. Our next use case is using the profile for context at scale. So this was a really successful one at Adobe, and we actually saved an embarrassingly high amount of money with this use case when we first built it last year, like in the 8-digit kind of range. You wouldn't think that this could be that powerful, but we built the profile originally in the very first use case we had for it. There's about 100 and change statistical models that are computed on every Creative Cloud user every day about how much value you're actually getting from your Creative Cloud subscription and how much you're using it and everything else. And so all those models run every day using a combination of data from Adobe Analytics and from our data warehouse and a number of other places. We built the profile to house all of those values and then be able to push them up in real time into Microsoft Dynamics on demand. So once you call, and we've identified who you are as a customer based on your phone number, the person that answers the phone has a Microsoft Dynamics screen that just spreads out a number of different values that might be pertinent based on your customer profile. Were you browsing adobe.com on how to cancel your Creative Cloud subscription 5 seconds ago? That can be displayed directly on the dynamic screen, so we know to handle that call differently. Have you had Photoshop crash more than 3 times in the 15 minutes preceding the call? I mean, like all of these sorts of data points that we're able to model and put directly into Dynamics in front of the person having the screen. And then the other one was, is your credit card expiring in the next 30 days? Because we found that if we lose somebody because their credit card expires, we almost never get them back. Don't ask me why. I would think that if I were using Photoshop to make a living and it expired, I would probably go right in and put my credit card in. I don't know. But that simple act of asking, like, hey, I see your credit card expires at the end of the month. Would you like to update that now? Saved us an embarrassingly high amount of money in fiscal 2019. So if you're an Adobe shareholder, that was a good one for you. Super cool because this is not how other profile services worked. I mean, we spent a 9-digit amount of money building this profile basically to satisfy this use case. We wanted to acquire a company. We looked at about a half dozen acquisition targets for profile, couldn't find one. So we ended up building this one out. The next use case, this one's super cool. This was a major US big box retailer. And if you guys are familiar with Amazon, where you shop and do stuff, I know I shop there all the time. Which I know that it's terrible. They compete with my customers and they don't do much business with us. But Amazon is killing a lot of retailers. So the retailers are having to adopt and build better in-store experiences because, of course, when you're shopping on Amazon, you're able to get an enormous amount of context around the products and reviews and stuff like that. So actually shopping in a big box store, they're doing everything that they can to help you have a similar experience. And one of them came to us and they said, hey, we really want to be able to have our in-store salespeople, and I can't tell you who this is because it's not a public story yet, but they have little iPads that their in-store people use when you are engaging with a specific salesperson. We want to be able to put modeled values directly into the hands of our salespeople while they're talking to customers because they have a very specific customer arc that you sort of take in your shopping with them because they know certain items mean that person just bought a house, other items mean they're an apartment person, and then the store sells appliances and they sell other things too, and they sort of know the arc that you take throughout your life throughout their store. It's really kind of neat. They showed us all the math behind it, but they said they really wanted to be able to say hey, if I've got Ben here in the store, what did Ben buy from me last, and how can I use that to know what Ben's likely to buy next? And so, again, same profile, but this time we added our data science environment to it. So the data science environment can take inputs was Ben just browsing appliances 10 minutes ago, in the store? Based on the geofence that they have. And we compute a score that tells them, hey, this is where Ben is in the arc. And it actually displays that right there to the sales associate. In addition, it was sort of a bonus use case. I mean, that one was super helpful for them, and it's helped them be successful the last couple quarters in their fight against Amazon. But it also gave them some neat data for merchandising that they didn't have before, because we were able to merge like the browsing data from their website and from their mobile app with their sales data from inside the store. They're actually using that to make sure they have enough of each product in the stores now too. It gave them an additional data point for merchandising that they didn't have before in terms of the website visits and things like that. The next one, and then we'll take questions after this in just a couple minutes. This is a really neat one. It's a hotel chain. A lot of us stayed there last night. They have a they have a mobile app like all the hotel chains do, and for hotels, expiring inventory is a major problem because like if you're the retailer in the previous example, if I don't sell all of my TVs on Saturday, I can still sell them on Sunday. But if I'm a hotel, if I don't sell all of my rooms on Saturday, they're just gone. I can't sell the Saturday night room on Sunday. It just doesn't, time travel's not yet possible. So these guys have a serious problem, not just with the rooms, because they use all sorts of marketing techniques to sell their rooms, but they have a problem with all their upsells and all the ancillary money they try and make on property. And depending on the property, it could be a restaurant, it could be a conference center, it could be a spa, it could be a golf course. There's a lot of different ways that they try and drive revenue through their property. And so they came to us and they said, we really want to be able to apply some specific decisioning criteria the second that the user sets foot on property. And we want to know, number one, what their full history is. We want to know, like, hey, does Ben go golfing or does Ben go to the bar? Does Dave go to the spa or does Dave go to the bar? Yes, Dave goes to the bar. Yeah, every time. So we have an ability to look back at the profile and see all that stuff, but we can also they have an API for their revenue management system, which if you're familiar with the hospitality industry, revenue management is the system that actually prices the rooms and prices the upgrades and everything else. Then they also have an API that talks about availability for all their ancillary services and everything like that. Like each property has a scheduling system that they schedule the spa, they don't schedule the bar, but they schedule a lot of other things, and they are able to then make a decision about how can we best message that user to drive the most revenue per visit. And they can do a push notification on your mobile phone as a result of our Journey Manager. They can do an email, and they can also put it on the screen when you get into the room. Like you can get to the room and it can be like, hi, Dave. Let us tell you about the restaurant downstairs, or let us tell you about the spa, or let us tell you about whatever else we think is going to drive revenue. And so we built this service we call Journey Management. And I have a screenshot of this one. It's just kind of a neat one where you can see like each decision point and each specific sort of thing here where I've got my check-in event, I've got my my confirmation push, and then all these sort of different things that are linked to an upsell. This is them trying to sell their credit card. This is the flow that we built out for offering you your credit card, offering you their credit card when you come on property because you get 80,000 points or 90,000 points or whatever it is. And the other kind of neat thing, external APIs. So this one, they're calling weather.com as part of that too. They're calling like some of our APIs, they're calling some of their internal APIs. There's also external APIs. So like they might say like, hey, it's 41 degrees outside. Like no need to try and sell the golf course, or like they might say something else. But it's just kind of a neat, as part of that flow through that system, they're able to call various APIs in different places, get data, augment it with the data from the profile that they're using as the data store here, and then arrive at whether it's an email or a push notification or something else. So anyhow, those are some cool stories of how customers are building stuff with us and are developing on our platform. Hopefully, this has been helpful to understand like how we're inviting the developer community into our platform, how we're helping our customers build their experiences with our new toolkit, and just some of the neat stuff that's on the horizon for Adobe. That's all I've got with 8 minutes left. Happy to open up to questions, and I do have a giveaway for the best question of a 10,000 milliamp battery pack that's branded with Adobe and Microsoft. Questions? Okay, great. Oh, sorry, right here.
Just for that.
Oh.
So I saw you have the machine learning model
Mm-hmm.
and inputs as well.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any external feed that can be provided? For example, I'm looking at, let's say, video feed or emotions or some of those aspects.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the same Kafka pipe can input anything that you want to feed into it, and then once it's in the data model, it can trigger any of these. So like the landing event can trigger the processing of a model, or better yet, you can actually hook, and we haven't done it yet, but it's on the feature roadmap. Like you can actually set a TensorFlow model like on the incoming pipe stream. And it's interesting because like most of the use cases customers have talked to us about, and if you guys in the back couldn't hear, it's the question was, can we hook other sorts of data sources up to the data science environment? The most logical use cases for marketers are always around looking at that event stream and taking some sort of action because this is an anomaly in my data pattern or something. But the most interest that we're actually getting in talking to developers right now is trying to use like a TensorFlow function to figure out where to land the data, because it's a data type maybe that they don't recognize, and with a flexible model, maybe they're not sure where it goes at first. So like we want to talk about, well, where does the data land? I mean, never mind like is this a marketing opportunity or something else? Like I'm just not even sure where to put this data that's coming in. So we've got a filter, and we've got an event bus for that, but we're still working on the direct processing of data. But certainly once it's in the data model, wherever it came from, it can be accessed all the ways that we said. Anybody else? I did only have one power bank, sorry. Awesome. Well, thank you very much.